You know, if you can master the first facet,
Si ustedes pueden desarrollar la maestría de la primera faceta,
you're in absolute freedom.
van a estar en libertad absoluta.
Why?
¿Por qué?
Because the only thing that
Porque la
exists
única cosa que existe en realidad
is what?
es que
This moment.
este momento.
You know, humans are always worrying about the
Las
future,
personas siempre se preocupan por el futuro,
regretting the
arrepentidos
past,
del pasado,
worrying about when they die.
preocupándose cuando se mueran.
All these ideas we
Las
have,
ideas que tenemos.
and we don't enjoy the here and
No
now.
disfrutamos el aquí y ahora.
And it's the only thing that's
Y
real.
es la única cosa que es real.
The world could end
El
tomorrow.
mundo puede terminar mañana.
You could all enlighten tomorrow.
Todos iluminarse
You
mañana.
don't know what's going to
Ahora
happen
no saben qué va a
because
suceder.
there's unlimited
Las
possibilities.
posibilidades son
But if you
ilimitadas.
keep dragging the past
Ustedes siguen arrastrando el pasado
into this present moment,
dentro de este momento presente.
you're not open to the magic.
No van a estar abiertos a la magia.
You're looking for repetition,
Están buscando por una repetición.
like the same food every day,
Una comida.
the same experience every day,
Cada día.
the same fear every day,
Miedo cada día.
and then projecting it off into the future.
Después lo proyectan al futuro.
Oh, my happiness is in a future moment
Felicidad está en un momento.
when I'm extraordinary,
Sea extraordinario.
when I'm the best,
Cuando sea la mejor.
when I have family,
Cuando tenga familia.
when I meet the perfect partner.
Encuentre la pareja perfecta.
We spend so much time
Tanto tiempo.
looking back
Buscar, mirando hacia atrás.
and worrying about the future
Preocupándonos por el futuro.
that we actually miss life.
En realidad nos perdemos la vida.
So that's why it's so vital, praise love for this moment in its perfection. And it is a perfect moment. It's always a perfect moment if you're surrendered to life. If you're flowing with life, it's always a perfect moment, no matter what transpires. Because when you're surrendered to life,
Cuando se rinden a la vida,
you're in joy.
están en dicha.
And you're enjoying what's here now.
Dando lo que está aquí ahora.
But when you're looking for happiness in the future,
Está buscando la felicidad.
you can't appreciate what's here now.
Lo que está aquí ahora.
And it sounds so simplistic
Suena súper simple.
because it is simple.
Es simple.
It's simple.
Simple.
Why can't we do it?
¿Por qué no lo podemos hacer?
Why can animals do it?
¿Por qué los animales sí pueden?
Trees can do it. Everything else can do it.
Todo lo demás lo puede hacer.
But humans can't do that.
Los humanos no pueden hacer eso.
Why?
¿Por qué?
Because we've been taught the opposite.
Se nos ha enseñado lo opuesto.
To look for everything externally.
Buscar todo en lo externo.
We have to take the internal,
Tenemos que llevar lo interno,
the internal joy,
la dicha interior,
into this moment.
a el momento, dentro de este momento.
And then we'll never want for anything.
Pues nunca vamos a querer otra cosa.
Because we can enjoy each moment.
Vamos a poder disfrutar cada momento.
We can create, we can discover, we can love, we can surrender, we can do whatever.
Lo que sea.
We can celebrate, we can dance, we can sing, we can enjoy, we can support,
Podemos apoyar,
we can change in this moment, in this moment, in this moment.
en este momento.
It's such a freedom,
Una libertad tan grande.
such a freedom.
Una libertad tan grande.
You know, I bet she went in the boat yesterday
Betty ayer fue al barco.
and she loved the boat.
Le encantó el viaje.
I think she got a bit weird,
Creo que en un momento se sintió un poco rara.
but she had a great time.
Pero la pasó súper bien.
But she didn't wake up this morning and say,
Pero no despertó esta mañana y me
"When are we going on the boat again?"
dijo, ¿vamos de nuevo en el barco?
She just enjoyed the moment.
Disfrutó el momento.
And see that.
Y vean eso.
That yearning for a future moment.
Ese anhelo siempre del momento futuro.
Or repeating the same.
Repetir lo mismo.
Always be open to a new experience.
Abiertos a nuevas experiencias.
Don't always be looking to repeat the same.
Siempre buscando repetir una
And the same's with your consciousness.
Lo mismo sucede con su
You know, you have an expansion.
Tienen una expansión.
Oh, I want that. That's why people love all this psychedelic stuff.
Por eso que a la gente le encanta todas estas cosas psicodélicas.
The mushrooms, LSD, drugs, because they want to go back to that experience. But you can't do that because it's not stable. It's just momentary. But to have permanent consciousness gives you silence. And to be in that silence, all your perceptions change. And when I talk about silence, I'm talking about not living in the illusion of the mind. The illusion of the mind. The heaven and hell of the mind. Being here. Just being here. And seeing the perfection of reality. The perfection within the duality. The perfection of the human experience. Here now. Here now. Praise love for this moment in its perfection. Thank love for my human experience, this phenomenal experience in its perfection. Good.
Hello. I have a question about vulnerability. So I grew up in the height of the women's liberation movement, and vulnerability was seen as something negative for women. We needed to be strong like men, and even always in my career, I would assess people's vulnerabilities as something negative versus their strengths. Now, as part of my process, I'm being told to be more vulnerable. And that's a strong program for me to resist that. So I'm wondering, how can I address that, reverse that, undo that idea that vulnerability is weakness and a negative thing?
You know, that was the irony of the women's liberation movement. It was like a point where we were trying to define our masculinity, and that's not our strength. Our strength is our femininity. Our consciousness is our femininity. Our capacity to nurture, to connect, to multitask, to have empathy and compassion. You know, that's the power of being a woman. To be focused, to be disciplined, is also an aspect of being a woman. And that burning our bras, I tell you what, if you ride horses, it didn't last long. You know, I put mine straight back on. And I remember very clearly going to these marches. And the stupidity was, for me, I was raised in a matriarchal family. So it never even occurred to me that I didn't have equal rights. But I was always going along with whatever protest there was. And I realized I was in the United Nations. And we were talking about sustainability. And at one point, a woman got up and she started talking about unequal pay. And I thought we already dealt with that issue. You know, now we're talking about empowerment and sustainability and going beyond our limitations. Because I saw throughout my life, I never suffered from discrimination because it didn't occur to me. I was always the best I could possibly be. And I was very much in a masculine environment. I was one of the first women in Australia to be training and breaking in racehorses. Like women just didn't do that. I was the youngest person in Australia to receive a training license. And I knew that in order to be the best, I had to be exceptional. But I was always challenging myself. And I can look throughout history, and there's always minorities that are famous and successful. So what is the problem? You know, there's a lot of prejudice within the workforce. There's a lot of machismo and violence towards women. And yes, that has to change. But you know who really has to change? The women. We have to change. We have to embrace our power. We have to see how great we are. We have to appreciate our vulnerability, that connection that we have, that capacity, like whales, to communicate over 10,000 kilometers and know exactly what's happening with our children without even talking to them. Women have that. We have telepathic powers that men can only dream of. You know, if you take away a man's phone, he's fucked, you know. So we have to appreciate all of our wonderful qualities. All of our wonderful qualities. And we have to enhance those. And it's the same for men. They have to enhance their femininity. And we have to enhance our masculinity. And we have to find a place of balance. And you know, I'm not talking about the men here. Because obviously, a lot of you are very evolved spiritually and very open and very vulnerable. I'm talking about this. But you're talking about that. And you're a woman. So who has to change? You. You have to appreciate those aspects of yourself. And interestingly enough, it's the responsibility of mothers. Mothers have to teach their sons that that's not okay. It's not okay. It's not a man thing to be abusing women. It's not acceptable. And I think we're starting to get to that point. But we have to remember that any sex can be a victim, or they can go beyond. You know, I choose to go beyond. I choose to be more. I choose to be twice as good instead of feeling like a victim. And that is about focus. That's about loving yourself. And that's not about comparison. It's about being the best that you can be. And that's the responsibility of every human. So that's a good question. How do I be more vulnerable? I have to let go of the idea that vulnerability is weakness, because it's not. Vulnerability is love, and love is connection, and connection is power. It's the capacity to communicate, to unify, and to relate. And the feminine aspects, we have to celebrate them. They're great things. Great things. But unfortunately, they've been placed in the inappropriate pile. for corporations. But that's changing, you know. Everything's changing with the young generation. I think.
These last weeks of my process is happening that I'm connecting a lot with a lot of emotions since a change of room to a conversation and dinner connects me with so many things. And at the same time, my head starts judgments. As it's too much, I will not be able to, or why I'm feeling what I'm feeling. And it's too much here, too much here. And I want like to run. And I want to know if this goes worst and how to go better
You
with
know,
it.
you have to see your rigidity. You're a mature woman with children, and we move you to another room, which is identical. Same white walls, same beds, same view, same everything, and that affects you. How do you flow? Because it's your rigidity and your need to control that makes you want to run away. So, why do you want to run away? Because you feel exposed. You don't feel protected. You're feeling vulnerable. And that doesn't make you feel safe. But you have to find safety internally. Because that's the only place it really exists. It doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing, it's your head that makes you feel secure. And when we're challenging your limitations, you feel insecure. But you came here to challenge your limitations, no? Because you felt limited. You know, fear holds us in limitation. So we're here and we're challenging. More vulnerable, exposing more, being more with myself, letting go of my attachments. Oh, who am I? Where am I? Because intellectually, it makes no sense what you're saying. You know, you're not 5. You're a mature woman that does everything every day and takes care of children and a husband and I don't know what else, but other things I'm sure. So just come back into the moment and remember, I came here to create fiction. I came here to expand my potential. I came here to make the love inside of me grow so that I'm free to be and do whatever I want without that inhibition. And without that need of always being protected. Because that cripples us. It cripples us. That need to be protected. Because it's an illusion. It's not real.
In between the enjoyment and exaltation, what is the difference?
You know, I don't think it matters too much. You know, you're going to have moments of exaltation. And it's nice, no? It's nice to be in bliss, to be dancing, to be having fun. And I see you guys like that. And it's great. I mean, that's what life's for, to enjoy. But it's not permanent. What we want is the stability of perpetual consciousness. So that's like a joy that's concrete. It's there eternally. It's your security. It's your internal love and that understanding of who you are. You know, when you exalt, it's more etheric. It's not real. It's part of reality, but it's not something you can stabilize. you can't live in exaltation unless you're a fairy. And, you know, that makes you dysfunctional within the world. So, we have to find the perfect balance between heaven and earth, between the spiritual and the material. And we have to live in that space of internal unity and unconditional love. And that's the way to live, because then you start to experience unity. Yeah?
You talk about the present moment at the beginning. In my process, it's been very hard for me to live the present moment. It's the hardest of all. Can you talk me again about it?
You know, the thing is, all of you are full of stress, yeah? You're detoxing, you're letting go of all your life dramas. So everything's moving. So your head naturally wants to escape. So it doesn't want to be here now. And this is a training ground to come back. But the truth is, no one can be in the present moment until they're empty. You know, you can go on a little Vipassana camp and stare at a wall and try and let go of your mind. But if you're full of stress, it will be like a torture. It's impossible. And it always amuses me, be in the present moment, be in the present moment, be in the present moment. Because it isn't instant. It's a consequence of consciousness. When this happens, when you start to witness the mind, that's when you start to live in the present moment. And that's what this process is for. To be more and more in joy in this moment, loving yourself unconditionally in this moment, finding the silence in this moment, not being a victim to your thoughts, and for your thoughts to be sparking all these emotions of suffering. We're letting all those go too. Because our dramas, our emotions, the things that have transpired in our lives, while our emotional body is still reacting, they're very real. They're not an illusion for you. They're your experience. But as we heal and we let go of the energy, it starts to become like a distant thought. It's no longer defining you. You know, my idea is that when you leave here, your suffering is not your definition. What you perceive as your defects is not your definition, nor your successes. That's not your definition. You take the two and you become the definition of your beingness. What am I being? Because you know what? I've had lots of success. Lots. Always really successful. I've had lots of suffering. Lots of loss. Lots of disillusionment. I've had both. And I can't even remember. All I know now is I am that. And that's what I want for you guys. Because neither of those two extremes are defining you. This is the truth of who you are. Consciousness. Consciousness. You know, it's like when Buddha enlightened. He didn't define himself as the king. He defined himself as consciousness. Because it's much greater. much greater.
I receive reflections and I'm very much trying to change the outside. And I'm seeing in my daily life how I try save my father from his addictions, my friends from whatever is happening to them, my mom from her sicknesses. And even if in my mind I can say, it's my control, I'm seeing them as a victim, I shouldn't be doing this. Today, in one expression, I saw that that force that takes me away from me is related with the pain that those things provoke. I want to ask you how to heal that need of saving the outside.
You know, by saving yourself. Because once you heal your own pain, you see the perfection. You know, all humans go through that. But they decide to change. We often save people or try to save people because the truth is we can't save anyone because it makes us feel powerful. Because really inside, we feel weak. We feel insecure. We're full of fear of losing the people we love. We feel unprotected. So we put this front of saving the world, being the Superman, because we don't want to look at ourselves. And until we completely look at ourselves and cultivate compassion, compassion comes from empowerment, not sympathy. Compassion comes from knowing yourself, perceiving yourself, and giving unconditional love. And seeing the perfection of how they are in that moment. See, you can't see that. You know, oh, my father's a drunk. Well, in this moment, it's perfect for him. And then he will decide to change or not. You know, my mother's suicidal. I'm here for her, but there's nothing I can do to stop her suffering. She has to choose to do that. These are examples, you know, and only you can perceive that they're responsible by finding your own responsibility. And I know it sounds hard, but we spend all our lives running around saving people. And we actually get addicted to saving people, which is the same as the addiction of the person. It's debilitating. It's not empowering. But when you're empowered, you can empower someone. You see me. I'm hard. Sometimes I shake because you're not seeing it. Is that love? Of course it's love. Because it doesn't come from fear. I'm not afraid you won't get it. I'm not afraid you won't love me. I'm pushing you to find yourself. And that comes from healing yourself. Yeah, so you have to always start at home. You know, you have to clean your house before you run around cleaning the neighbor's house. You know, I think Jesus said that, no? Take the speck out of your own eye, or remove the log from your own eye. And it's the same thing with judgment. The judgment's only there if it's within you. And that doesn't mean we're indifferent. It doesn't mean we're not there if they want support. But if they don't want support, you can't insist. Because then they do it for you. And it doesn't work. They do it for you. They have to do it for themselves. And of course, you give all the love and support. But don't get lost in that. And some people don't want to change. Some people like their addictions, and they will die with their addictions because they like them. And that's okay too. It's okay. Because every human has to take responsibility. Hmm?
I don't know her. I just feel sadness. I just have few memories, like a picture that I'm too serious, but I don't remember that time. Today I remember that when I was born, my mom told me that it was huge. I don't know if she was blaming or it was a, a praise. Almost 5 kilos, that is like a child of 3 months old. And then when I was going to a kindergarten, I remember and nothing else. From 6 years back, I don't remember. But I feel a lot of sadness from that time. Can you tell me what's that? I think that I know that sadness and I need to be there to move through. I don't know.
So, children are so sensitive. And it doesn't matter what our parents say. They can say a billion amazing things. But for some reason, if we feel criticized, it sticks. Like mum comes back in the home in a bad mood, says something hard, and it changes our world. Because that's our humanity. We're very, very sensitive. And you're going into those places. Because all your life you've been covering them. And teachers and parents and siblings are always projecting onto us when we're children. But we take everything on. It's like when people have a divorce, the parents always think the children always think it's their fault. And you have to go deep into that. And that sadness has been something you've been covering all your life. And what is that feeling? I'm not good enough. There's something wrong with me. I'm not safe because I'm not good enough. And it doesn't matter how much they tell you the opposite, you have to heal that. Because my parents used to say wonderful things to me. And I never believed them. Once I found out I was adopted, I just didn't believe them. Nothing was ever good enough for me, because I was so exigent. But, and it's that sensitivity. And you can't avoid it, no? We're humans. You can't be walking on glass with your children. You have to be giving the best you can from your consciousness. But it happens. But these things are changing.
Yesterday, someone said that I was very loving. And I felt sadness because it's something that I was expressed to me. But I think I'm not like that with me. I could love to learn to be more loving with myself.
It's an interesting thing. Because a lot of people that are very loving externally are very violent internally. And it's great you can see that. Because you can change that. And ask yourself this question. What is the point of being hard with myself? What do I achieve? What do I achieve? I achieve suffering. I am provoking my own suffering because nothing's ever good enough. And you have to catch it. There's always that backward criticism. You think something nice about yourself, and then the little voice finds something wrong. Yeah, and just start opening. You know, look in the mirror. Love creates me in my perfection. Give that love to yourself. When you give love to someone else, give it to yourself. Open to receive. I'm sure you have no problem giving, giving, giving. No? Well, open to receive. And everything will change. Hmm?
I feel I'm very violent with myself. In this process, I have been moving lots of behaviors that are very damaging for myself, like eating too much or consuming too many drugs. I'm here, I move them, I express, but in that moment, I feel also a lot of judgments with myself. How bad I did, I feel guilty, how terrible I am. And I am suffering twice. Once when I do it, and now when I see it and move it. And how can I heal that in a loving way?
Well, you know, you have to remember one thing. You're here. Now, I'm here because I love myself. All of you love yourselves on some level, or you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't give this time to yourselves. 6 months. You know, I mention this to normal people in the world. Oh, yeah, I've got 100 students doing 6 months. It's like I said, I've got an atomic bomb in my suitcase. They go, what? 6 months? And I'm like, it's only 6 months. Really? And they stay there for 6 months? But with that voice, no? And these are educated people, you know, intelligent people. But 6 months? And yeah, they come for 6 months. Well, I could come for the weekend. And they just get shocked. Shocked that people could be here for 6 months. It's not normal. And this is people that are highly intuitive, really want to change, really want joy in their lives, really want to experience love, and worked hard to come here. It's not that you're all multimillionaires and you came here for a party for 6 months. And that, just that, says, I love myself because I am worth 6 months. And you have to remember that. Okay, that's a practical thing. Okay, for you to remember. The next thing is, it's that exigence that made you do all that. So you have to remember, my exigence took me to drugs. Now, my exigence of punishing myself for something that I did in the past is equally as destructive. And you have to remember that and stop and catch your head. Oh, 6 months. 6 months. Yay, 6 months. Love creates me in my perfection. You know, you all have to realize this. 6 months. It's an incredible gift you've given to yourselves. And it's completely transformative, no? You cannot leave here without transforming. I'm not saying you're all going to float out enlightened, but you're going to be completely different people with a completely different experience internally.
There are situations, painful situations in my life that provoke me resentment. And as a consequence, unhappiness. In some moments, I feel I overcame those situations, but a thought, simple thought, they activate them again and activates immediately the suffering. My question is how to let go the resentment.
You know, the thing is, you have to see the victim consciousness because you're blaming something external. You're resented towards something. But it's poison for you. It doesn't affect whoever provoked it. It's affecting you. And the quicker you liberate that, you know, Jesus talks about forgiveness. But I don't even know if it's forgiveness. It's just letting go of the attachment to blame someone for your misery. And that can even be yourself. Something you did or something someone did to you. But that resentment with someone or with self causes suffering. So it's poison. So it's so important to recognize it and stop justifying it. Because we justify it in our heads. My need to be resented because I was right. And there's no right or wrong. There's perceptions. There's no justice. There's perceptions. You know, the world is not how we think it should be. Parents do not behave how we think they should behave. Exes do not do what we think they should do. Brothers and sisters are capable of doing horrible things under difficult circumstances. Así es la vida. And we have to see it. We have to catch it and have to change it. You can't regret the past. You can't resent the past. You can't keep bringing in the past. You have to get to the point where that love you have for yourself, lets go of that and embraces this moment.
Come visit our webpage for books, movies, and our wonderful retreat centers. Isha's simple yet powerful system is transforming lives around the world.